Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of our series regarding how to draw perspectives. And today we are going to talk about the 2-point perspectives, taking a little bit more complex examples as we did in the last session. So as we saw in the last session, we took a house and very simple street beside it as an example, using the 1-point perspective, and today we are going to do exactly the same but different example, of course, using the 2-point perspective and not the 1-point perspectives. So let me just use another one, like a new one. So for the 2-point perspective, as a very quick recap here, so 2-point perspectives, it uses 2 points, 2 vanishing points, point A and point B. We talked about it in details in the last session, of course, but as just a quick recap to remember what our topic for today is. So we are going to use this method today to draw an interior room that has walls, floor, maybe bed, drawers, and maybe some painting on the wall, and door as well. So let's try to do that. So when we want to draw an interior room, right? So today we are not following any real life examples or real life room. We are just like trying to create this from our imagination, because I do believe this is a very good practice to really train your mind how to absorb objects and break them down and to understand their proportions as well. This is a very good practice in my opinion, and that's the reason why we are not following any real life reference yet, but maybe in the next sessions, in the upcoming sessions. So anyway, so when we want to draw a room, we start with the very first biggest area in our room, which is actually the ceiling, the walls, and the floor. We are not going to start with the bed, for example, or a drawer, right? We start from the biggest item down to the smallest. So let's say I'm standing right here. Yeah. So our 2-point perspectives are going to be, this is our point, our first point, and this is our second point, like this here. Okay, so we draw a very simple line between these two, just to help me out understand. Okay, so I'm standing here in the middle of the room. It means I have a wall here and I have a wall here. Let's assume that. Okay, so first I need to draw the first door, the first wall, for example. So let's say, for example, this is our room from here to here, and this is the middle of the room. So I put a point here in the middle. Okay, just 1 point. And now I draw a horizontal line, because as you remember, as we talked about in the last sessions, so the 1-point perspective, it uses the 1 point plus the horizontal and vertical. The two lines, the 2-point perspectives, it uses 2 vanishing points and the vertical lines. Yeah, and this is what we are going to cover today. The 3-point perspectives, by the way, it uses 3 vanishing points and no vertical lines or horizontal lines. We are going to talk and cover about the 3-point perspectives, but in the upcoming sessions, okay? Because 3-point perspective is a little bit difficult, a little bit more complex in compared to the others. Anyway, long story short, we go back to our example. So this is our room. As we said, we need the vertical line, so we draw a vertical line in the middle. So it means this is our room and this is the middle. So this is the first half of the room, and this is the second half. Okay, let's assume so. So now let's start making the wall, ceiling, and floor. So the floor ideally will be here, right? Because it should be like the first level we start with. So now we have to define the floor first, because it's actually going to help us start from the floor, then going up to the wall, then the ceiling. It's easier this way, you know. So now I draw a line like this, and a line like this. Okay, so now as you see, so we have two crossing lines, but this is not quite enough to create the wall, the first wall here. So the first wall is we're gonna need a second line, which is going to be like this one. I'm just choosing randomly, okay, for now, just to show you actually how it looks like. This is our second point. So this is the point that is generated by these two lines, and again I connect these two. So let's call it A and let's call it B. Okay, then again I connect this point that was generated by crossing these lines to B, to the point B again. So as you see, what we have here, we do actually have now this line. Let me just highlight it for you, and this line, which is actually our first wall and second wall. So let me just highlight this one as well, because this is our first wall, second wall, and we are standing right here in the middle. Okay, so now if I notice that this wall is going to be very, very tiny, too tight, yeah, I am actually able to extend it to make it bigger by just extend this length by putting another point, and again, maybe this is way too far, let's use another one like this one. Okay, and do this, connect these points to each other. This one is okay, this one looks fine. Also this line, if I still feel that this wall, because we need this, right? So we need again to draw the vertical line and the vertical line on the right and the left. If I still feel that this wall is too tight, I can maybe extend it a little bit by just doing this, and again connect it to point B. Don't worry about this line, because we can actually use it for either the bed or a carpet. We can see later on. Okay, for now we can maybe just erase it a little bit. Just 1 second, because we don't want these lines to cause us any confusion. As you know, sorry. So here we go. So let's highlight our lines. This is our second wall. This is our first wall. This is our second wall, and this is the third, which is actually dividing these two walls. So now we need to define how high is our room. So the ceiling, let's say our ceiling is gonna stop maybe here. Okay, so this is the heights of the wall. So now it gets much easier. So now what I do is actually I connect this point to A, and this same point goes also to B. Once I do that, you notice we have now this line, and we have now this line, and we have now this line. And as you see, now we have the first wall, the second wall, and the floor. So Now you remember these lines, so these points 1.1.2, we need again to draw a horizontal line, because as we said, this 2-point perspective still needs the horizontal lines as the third dimension, right? So once I do that, and again to this one, so let me highlight it a little bit for you, because now we have way too many lines. So as you see, now we can clearly see that we have the wall 1 and the wall 2, the floor, and actually the ceiling. We have the ceiling already, right? So let me just reduce the strength of this, the strength of this line, because we might need to add like a door maybe later on or so on. So we don't want it to have it way too hard, because it's gonna disturb us actually, and yeah, cause a small confusion. So I just reduced it a little bit, because let's see later on how we can use it. So now we have the main room, we have the location, right? So now we can move to maybe create a door right here. So let's say we want a door, we want to draw a door here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, I actually, let's say for example our door ends here, right? I just put a point again as always, and this point again goes to point A, the vanishing point A, very simply this way. So once I do that, you will notice it automatically gives me a line that will help me to create the door here. So now we can decide how big our door is, or the width of our height of our door. So it's definitely not going to be like this tight, because like the human door will be like 90 centimeter at least minimum, I guess, for interior, approximately like that. And yeah, taking this assumption, we can maybe assume that the door is gonna be ending right here. So I put a point again, and this point you can guess, I guess, from by yourself, it automatically goes up, simply goes up. Once we do that, we have our door, and the door, as you see, in the right proportion, everything looks correct. So once we do that, by the way, because having only these lines is not enough, we need the thickness of the wall, right? We need to see the wall, because we are drawing perspective. It's not 2D, it's 3D, 3 dimensions. So the thickness of the wall, how can we get it? Do you see this number, this 1.23, 4 points? We need this point. This point to actually give us the thickness of the wall, what we do is we simply connect it to vanishing point B. Sorry, my line doesn't look fine. So once we do that, now we have this line, which helps us actually to decide how thick our wall is going to be. Our wall is definitely not going to be that thick or that thick, maybe like something like that, if we think logically, okay? So again, this point, we can simply now connect it to point A. Once we do that, it actually gives me this line and this line. So now we have the top thickness. How can we make the side thickness, which is this one, visible? We simply go with this point down, because we need this vertical line. And again, this point goes to B. Once I do that, it automatically gives me this one. See, this point. So now we can see actually the thickness of the wall, and it looks accurate and correct. Why? Because I always followed the vanishing point A and B. So without or before adding any details into the door, like door frame or anything, try to get like the other items done. For example, like the drawers here, maybe painting, and the bed. Then you move on to a little bit more details, more and more. Yeah, so my point is, my recommendation is, do not add and deep dive into adding details to a corner or anything, any component in your drawing without finalizing the whole scene. So we move step by step. So for the door, so having that said, for the door, it's more than enough to have it this way for now. We can add details later on, okay? So now let's say we want to have like drawers here, okay? So drawers are not going to be, or is not going to be as high as the door, of course. So it's going to be maybe like the middle of the door. So the height, the middle of the height of the door, okay? So what we do is actually we put a point in the middle of the door because we need a line, okay? We need this line or this line. This line is going to be helpful for us because it's very close to us, you know? Once I have this point, I again connect it to A, the very same approach, nothing changes. Yeah. And this line is going to actually give me the first proportions of our drawers. So once we do that, we now connect this point to B as we did for point A. Yeah, and this line is going to be the thickness of the drawer, and this is the front part. So let's say the thickness or the depth of our drawers is gonna be like this way here. So if we put a point here and just draw again vertical line and again vertical line here, which we already have, as you see, I connect now this point to B, which is actually already connected. I just need to extend my line. It automatically gives me the thickness of our drawers, which is 1 point, 0.1, 2, 3, and 4. This is not going to be visible because the drawers is actually in front of it, you know, this one. Let me erase it to make it more visible for you. Here we go. See? So after drawing this, I noticed that the drawers might be way too high. So it is fixable. What I do is actually I just go a little bit lower by drawing a point here, and again I just connect it. Now I reduce the height of my drawer, and you notice when I did I do that, I did it before deep diving into finalizing the shape of the drawer, because fixing this mistake now is easier and much better than doing it before afterwards, you know. So now after I have the heights that I really think, okay, it does look better than this one, I now can reduce this one because I don't need it anymore. So my point is, it's fully normal to make mistakes, even for experienced people. Yeah, the most important point is actually fixing the mistakes, how to fix them, and when to fix them at the right point. Yeah, because if I finalize everything with shading and everything and notice, okay, the drawer are way too big, fixing that at the very end is way too difficult, you know, and it will damage your painting. Now is much better. So now we have the thickness of our drawers. Now what we do is, again, this point to point A, the same approach, nothing changes. It's very simple. And this point, goes again to point A. So as you see now, we have this point and this point, which are super helpful for us to really give us what we need, which are the drawers. So the drawers are going to be a little bit thinner than, so they are not going to be extended to touch the wall, but they are going to be a little bit thinner. So I'm gonna say they end up being here. Okay, so I draw a line. Yeah, I draw a point, sorry, and this point simply again goes down. So now, once I do that, it crosses this line. See, I mark my point and I connect these two together. And now, as you see, we have very nice looking box here, which is going to be our drawers. So this line is not going to be visible for this wall because it sits behind the drawers, right? Logically speaking. So let's erase it. Yep. So our drawers, let's say we need to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so let's say 6 is maybe too much, maybe 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, as a 4 drawers. So it means this box needs to be cut it in half, right? So half this way and half this way. So the way I do it is very, very simple. So I choose again the closest corner to me, which is the closest corner to me is definitely not this one or this one, because they are a little bit further. The closest point to me is actually this one. So I use this point, this line, to mark my middle point, which is actually this one. And I connect again this point, the same approach, nothing changes, to point A, which actually gives me automatically this line. And again, I need second line because I need 4 drawers, as we said. I mark the middle of this line and I draw a vertical line, which automatically gives me these 4 drawers. So if you want to draw very simple, like draw handles, okay, you can judge by yourself where the middle is, which is actually this area, but you can actually do it in an accurate way, which is you can actually check this line from this here to this point and mark the middle of it, and again you connect it to point A. As you see here, everything goes to either point A or B because everything is controlled by these 2 points. Even small details, small corners in our room, okay? Literally everything. So once I do that, I have this line, so which actually gives me the location of our drawers, but I need the second line, which gives me actually this like kind of like crossed looking lines that gives me the location of our drawers handles. So I choose this line instead of this one, and I mark the point, the middle point, and again I go down. The same I do here, and I go down. So once I do that, it automatically gives me this point, as you see. Then I do like very simple circle. It doesn't matter how your draw handles looks like. Yeah, you can decide by yourself, but this is something like approximately like this it's gonna be. So now we have the door, we have the wall 2, floor, and drawers, right? Which is super good, yeah, which is very good because we used only 2 points and our room is actually in accurate shape and very healthy proportions. So nothing looks odd or nothing looks very bad or anything, you know, or in a bad location or not accurate size, you know. So even though what I mean by that, even though that we are currently not following any real life room, but the proportions, like the accuracy, the size accuracy for the drawers in compared to the door, and the door in compared to the floor, and the floor compared to the wall are kind of accurate. You know, nothing looks very, very odd or very, very big or very small. So this is a good, why I'm saying this is a good indicator that our painting is going good. So nothing will be like bad at the very end, which is going to be difficult to fix. So why it might get difficult to fix? Because as you see, we already started having way too many lines in our scenes, so in our drawing. So now let's say we want to draw a bed here, as we said. So bed is actually very simple. Again, is as we did for the drawers. So actually we can use this line, but it's kind of like a very close. So we need, like, for example, this is where our line. So the way of defining the bed location is actually to think of where is the closest point to you from the bed. So the closest point of the bed to me might be here, because I'm standing here. So this point is gonna be like this, like in that location. Okay, so let's say our bed starts here, okay, where our bed starts, and it's gonna end like here. So our bed is gonna be like that thing. Okay, we cannot do that way or this way, because this way is too tight, and this way is way too big. So we choose something in the middle, like something like that. Okay, once I do that, I have 1.1. I connect it to point A, and this point, I already have this line, by the way, right? So, but as you see, there is something we need to fix here. Very simple. If I use this line, which is gonna be like for our bed, and I draw this line touches the front surface of the drawers. Yeah, which is physically not accurate, because the bed cannot be touching face to face the drawer. So I need to move my point to make our bed a little bit far from the drawers, because you need to move here, right? It's not going to be looking nice if it's really like face to face touching the surfaces. So the way of fixing that is actually I move my point a little bit backwards, this way. Once I do that and connect the point, as you see, it automatically creates very nice line for me, which is a little bit far from the drawers, which is great because we need it this way. Yeah, we need our bed to be far from the drawers, not touching the surfaces. So once I do that, again, we need our vertical lines. We draw vertical lines from that point and from that point as well. Okay, so we have now our two. Sorry, sometimes my lines don't look great because I'm not using any ruler, as you see, but either way it's okay. So yeah, so we have now the two lines and the 2 points and the two vertical lines. So now from this vertical lines, which is the closest to us in compared to this one, I can define, again, as I did for the door, we first defined the heights of the door. Now we can define the heights of the bed as well. So the height of the bed might be something like, maybe like this. Not the mattress per se, but maybe the back side of the door, of the bed, sorry. Why I'm saying door, bed. So now we have this point. Now I connect it again to point A, which automatically gives me this line and create for me this point, which also I'm going to use later on. Okay. So once I do that, I have line 1, line 2, and line 3, and line 4, by the way, which is going to be the bottom part of the bed. So now we have the back side of the bed. Now we have to define the heights of the mattress, right? Because we need the mattress to sleep on. So now we can use this line to define the mattress. Let's say it's gonna be something like here. Then I put a point, and again I draw a line from this line, from point A, and this point again, where does it go? It goes to point B. As always, the same approach, nothing changes. Once I do that, it automatically gives me this line and also this point, because it crosses this line. So now I have 1.3, 4, 5, 6 points, which are super helpful to create the bed for us. So how to move on? We connected, you remember, we connected this point to point A, and we connected this point to point A as well. It means we have line 1 and we have line 2 actually, which means for us we actually have the thickness of the mattress and the door, the floor, I'm losing my English, I'm sorry, the bed, so which is actually this side. So this line will not be visible. Why? Because it sits behind this side. So let's try to erase it to make our shape a little bit more visible and understandable, and to reduce any confusion. Yeah. And now, using this line, we can define how big our bed is. So it's gonna be this way, or this way, or this way, this way. So as I said before, as in this session we are not following any real life room or real life reference, you can judge by yourself. So our bed definitely not gonna be like that tight, or that small, or that small, or that big. So it's gonna be something like maybe like this. You can use your own judgment. That's totally fine, because this way you can also, you train your eyes actually. Yeah, so I'm not saying following a real life reference is not good. It's actually good. Even big artists and famous artists do that. Like they like, for example, they bring something, yeah, like an item or an object, and try to redraw it, because this way you can really practice your eyes and make your eyes much stronger. But also drawing from imagination, also not bad and very good actually to practice and to strengthen your mind and your power and ability to imagine objects and understand proportions. This is the most important point actually that I want to deliver. So anyway, without talking that much, let's go back to our example. So we have this line. Now let's say our bed is gonna end here, okay? So I put a point, and again this point goes down because I need our vertical, right? The third dimension. Once I do that, I connect this point to point A, as we always did. Once I do that, it automatically creates this line for me, right? So once I do that, now I connect this point to point A, which is actually, we did already before. So this line crosses this line automatically, as you see, and create or generate this line for this point for us. So I mark it. Now we have 1.34. Yeah, but as you see, it's still not accurate. Yeah, why? Because I used the wrong line now. So the line that I need to use actually, when I connect this line to point A, I also need to connect this point to line B, to point A as well. So once I do that, this is our line, yeah, and this point also uses the same. We also draw a vertical line. So once I do that, they cross at exactly this point. See? So once I do that, this point, and as you see, the continuous of this line automatically crosses this line. So when we use this point, as you remember, we connect it to point B, which creates for us this line. So this line automatically also crosses this line, the point we connected to point A, and draw this. So we have now 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we have this line. Let me just highlight it for you. I know it became way too many lines, I know, but remember, we are not drawing very simple example today. We are drawing a whole room. That's why it gets a little bit more complicated now. So as you see, let me just like refresh it for you. So we have 1.34. This is our 4 lines, and now this line, this point again goes down. See? So now, as you see, our bed looks way too high, right? It's just too high. So we can reduce it by drawing a line, point here. I could have drawn the point here, but as you see, I don't have enough space in my page. So maybe I can use this one. So I have a point here now. I connect it to vanishing point B. And now, as you see, it automatically create the height of the bed for us. Let me just highlight it for you a little bit. So this part of the drawers needs to be removed because it actually sits behind the bed, and that's why it won't be visible. So remove it. And redraw my line. And this line is not going to be visible as well because it sits now inside the bed. This line as well from the wall is not going to be visible because again it sits behind the wall, the bed, and this line as well. So now, as you see, we have the bed, we have the drawers, we have the doors, and yeah, the room looks just nice, just fine. Yeah, even the bed looks a little bit upscaled, but it's okay. So it looks correct. So if you want it in the future to be like a little bit stretched, not very much scaled, what you need to do is actually you need to make your points a little bit further, like this direction, a little bit far from each other. When you do that, instead of, I said, when you do that, then your vanishing point will create lines instead of this direction. Let me just demonstrate it for you. It will create lines in this direction. They are going to be much opened. Why? Because they are further from each other. So my point is, if you feel that the perspectives or the object that you are drawing is too much scaled, it looks like way too big at the closest point to you and way too small by the the farthest point or the point that is most far from you, then it means your point. This is a big indicator that actually your vanishing points are way too close to each other. So what you need to do is actually to open them and make them a little bit further, which will create for you this very simple lines like this way. Yeah, we can maybe take this example in the next session by doing like very upscaled or like downscaled. Sorry, this is upscaled, downscaled perspective. But for today, we can focus on this one. Okay, so these lines also, the vanishing point lines, we can reduce them a little bit. They are way too many now. We don't need them, definitely not. So now we have the bed, as you see. So before diving into more details, let's say we have a painting, yeah, on top of the bed. Doing that is also very simple. So let's say, For example, we have this point and this point. We can actually use them to draw these vertical lines, just continuing your lines, nothing new here. And let's say your painting is gonna be a little bit upper the bed, like this distance from here to here. Okay, so then I draw a line or point, sorry. Once I do that, I connect this point to point B and to point A. Yeah, and once we do that, so I forgot to connect it to point B, sorry, my mistake. Once I do that, it creates this line for me. So this line is gonna cross this vertical line again. I put my point, then I go up. Now I can decide how high my painting will be. It's not gonna be that high, of course. It's gonna be like something like maybe this. Then I put a point here, and again I connect it to point B, exactly as I did. Nothing changes. Once I do that, it crosses this line again. Now we have 1.34, which is going to be our painting actually, which sits upper the bed. We can add a frame, very simple frame. I'm not going to use this vanishing point for the frame. We can, of course, by connecting this point to point B and this point to point B as well, but this will create unnecessary way too many lines in our scene. So for these small details, I can maybe compromise on using our vanishing point. Yeah, just to have like a little bit kind of frame. So now, as you see, now we have everything we need in our room. We have wall 1, wall 2, door, drawers, painting, bed, and ceiling and floor. Everything looks fine. So now we can spend some time to maybe highlight it a little bit, but because I am aware that now we have way too many lines in our scene, which is okay. So we can maybe start to a little bit highlight our main objects. Just highlight them a little bit, okay? And the drawers. And drawers handles as well. We can maybe highlight or emphasize our painting as well. Our main wall can be also highlighted a little bit. The ceiling. And the door. As you notice, in the whole process, I didn't use any ruler at all. And this is completely fine if your line looks a little bit noisy or not like 100% straight as I'm having here. It's totally fine because now we are doing just a sketch, you know, just to understand the perspectives and how to deal with it, how to create the room in an accurate way, in a right proportions. And the main rules that we need to follow. So as you see now, we have very nice room. All objects looks fine and looks accurate actually, and kind of like in the right proportions. If you compare all of these items to each other, like the bed looks fine in compared to the drawers, and the drawers, if you compare the drawers size to the door, it looks accurate as well, and it matches actually the real life room, kind of, you know. Now we can maybe put some, just highlight a little bit to understand the depth of our painting. Wherever I have thickness, I can maybe highlight it a little bit. But this is of course not shading. We are not shading or taking any light source into consideration in our scene, because as I said previously, lighting and shading and light sources are going to be definitely in different sessions, because I would like to really focus on only that topic when I talk about lighting, okay? Otherwise it's going to be very overwhelming for you if I give you like tons of information in one session, which makes it like kind of like difficult to follow. That's why like step by step is recommended in my opinion. And the side of the bed as well, maybe as well maybe we can create some thickness here a little bit to make it look real, the back side of the bed, yeah, just a little bit here to give us like some kind of feeling, you know, that it's not flat and it does look real. Some highlighting here as well, maybe the painting. Yeah, and the drawers as well. So now, as you see, of course, I can simply continue highlighting as much as I want, because this is not our main topic today, as we said. So yeah, for example, let's say we wanna draw a simple painting here on top of like a mirror, not painting, a mirror on top of these drawers. Yeah, we can actually again use this line and this line, because they are way too heavy for us. So once I do that, I just like create this line. Maybe it's too much, just reduce it a little bit, and we have this line already. These two lines we are going to use to create our mirror. So our mirror is going to be that high, for example. The distance between the mirror, the bottom part of the mirror, and the drawer is going to be like this, not here or here, okay, logically speaking. Then I connect this point to point A, which I already have this line, because we create already too many lines. So once you have too many lines in your drawing which are in the correct location, you will find out that these lines can be used for something else, you know, for a different object, which exactly what happens here. So we do have this line already. So this is the first line that we need. So once I do that, let's say our mirror ends here and ends here, or start here and ends here. So I put these 2 points again I need the vertical line. Once I do that, I do have now this line, which actually the bottom part of the mirror. Now I need to define again, as we did for the door and as we did for the bed, as we did for the painting, we need to define the height of the mirror. Yeah. So before doing that, I want to give you an advice. So if you notice within so during my progress, yeah, I always defined the height by starting from the bottom point, going up from the bottom, going up. Why? Because it's actually easier, it's much easier. Why? Because if you say, for example, taking the mirror as an example, let's say we want to start from the top going down. If I start putting this point here, for example, okay, this is the, let's assume this is the top part of the mirror here, okay. Once I do that and I draw my lines, we have already line. Once I try to go down, it automatically gives me the impression that there is no enough space. So I need to move up a little bit to give me enough space that I want to use it for my mirror, you know. And that's why starting from the bottom going up is much easier, because you will always have a space, because you are starting from the bottom, as I did here for the bed. Yeah, I decided to have the height of the bed at this point, and from this point I connected all my points, and so on and so on. So from the bottom up, from the bottom up. The same I did for the door, the same I did for the drawers, the same I did for this wall. I didn't start from this point and I went down, because you will feel it, you will figure it out. Actually, once you try it, you will feel it. Starting from the bottom going up makes your life much easier by drawing, okay, especially when it comes to perspective. So going back to our mirror, let's say, so we have now this point and this point. So to define the height of our mirror, it's not going to be like here or here, of course. It's going to be something like maybe like that, this way. So I draw a point. Now this point again, I guess you guessed it right, goes to point A, and this line automatically crosses our vertical one, which generates for me this point. So we have now 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is actually our mirror, as you see, and the proportions are very accurate and very correct, because we used our lines, our 2 vanishing points, A and B. I'm just highlighting them because I cannot express enough how important this is. It's called 2-point perspective for a reason, because everything is actually aligned to these points. So anyway, going back to our mirror, yeah, we can make it like simple frame, yeah, like this way or this way, just to add some action into this object, and maybe like this. And maybe highlighting it a little bit, just to give it kind of depth, you know. Here we go. So now I'm gonna just highlight the most dark area, or the darkest area in our scene, which I think is gonna be like the thickness or the depth of our wall, the side part of our drawers, maybe the back side of our bed. By the way, for the bed, we can add some thickness into it here to make it look like nice, you know. Just very simple line, and maybe I can highlight it a little bit. Maybe this side as well. And so on, and so on. Maybe I can also give some highlights to our wall, which is also not bad because it gives me some kind of like feeling that they are not the same wall, this wall and this one. So it's kind of like divide them in a good way, gives you the impression that they are really separated walls, you know. Very simply like this. Yeah, actually it does look good. Yeah. So yeah, so this is our object for today, our drawing for today, talking and explaining about the 2-point perspective. Just a quick recap what we did today. So as you remember, we started putting our 2 perspectives point or vanishing points, point A and B. Then you start with the biggest component in your item, in your drawing, sorry, which is the floor. In my opinion, floor is very good point to start with. Why? Because as I said here, following this rule, this one, starting from the bottom going up makes it easier for you. So when we take the room as an example, the bottom part of the room means the floor. So once you start with the floor, it makes it just easier for you because everything, why? Because all components in your room will follow the floor. The bed will be sitting on the floor, the drawers as well. The door is located on the floor. The walls as well are directed to the floor and everything. So, which means if your floor proportions are correct from the beginning, it makes it much easier for you to finalize your drawing and to make it really look accurate and looks correct, you know. And the opposite also applies on this, like the opposite also goes this way. If your floor looks a little bit too small or a little bit too big or a little bit scaled or not the right proportions, yeah, then it just like will cause you more and more confusion and it will be very difficult to fix. Like imagine this drawing, okay, that we did today. Imagine the floor looks very odd and the scale or the lines doesn't look nice. Can you imagine how difficult it will get to fix that after finishing everything? This is exactly why I'm saying having everything right from the beginning makes your life much easier. Trust me on this and try it out. And don't be afraid to make mistakes, because only by making mistakes you will learn more and more. And try not to use a ruler. I'm not saying using a ruler is wrong, but if you really want to grow and become powerful and become better and better in drawing, I don't recommend you to use a ruler. Yeah, you might think it's difficult. It is difficult, yes, but it's doable. And only by practicing and practicing, as you see. So as we saw today, I was able to draw the whole room in a right proportion and everything looks nice, as you see, without any ruler. Yeah, you just have to understand and to practice and to really be aware how these methods works, either the 1-point perspective or the 2-point perspectives. Yeah, I think that's all for today. Yeah, please excuse me or forgive me if the session today was a little bit too long, but it was necessary to take a little bit more complex example, as you see. Yeah, So thank you very much for watching and bearing with me to the very end. And if you missed the last session, I'm gonna link it to exactly to at the very end of this video. You can find it on the left side of the screen. Watch it out and try also today's session step by step and enjoy it. Thank you very much and see you next time. Bye bye.